The hum of the engines filled the cabin like a soft lullaby. Passengers chatted quietly, a baby cried somewhere near the back, and the scent of coffee drifted down the aisle. In seat 12F, a man sat silently, looking out the window at the endless blue sky. His name was Ethan Cole, a single dad, a mechanic from Charleston, South Carolina, and a man who hadn't smiled in months. His hands rested on a small backpack, worn, old, but precious. Inside were a few photos of his late wife, Emily, and a drawing his little daughter Lila had made, a stick figure of her dad holding hands with her under a rainbow. That simple picture was what kept him going. Today, Ethan was flying to Seattle, where he'd been offered a new job at an aircraft maintenance company, a chance to rebuild their lives. But what no one around him knew was that Ethan had once been more than just a mechanic. He had been a pilot, a combat pilot, known by a call sign whispered through the Air Force with deep respect, Titan 1. He had left the service after an accident 3 years earlier, a rescue mission gone wrong. He'd saved his crew but lost his co-pilot and best friend, Captain Ryan Blake. Since then, guilt had followed him like a shadow. As the plane cruised above the clouds, Ethan took a deep breath and looked out. The sky was peaceful, quiet, almost too quiet. Then, a faint shimmer caught his eye. Far off in the distance, 2 sleek jets glided through the clouds. He knew that silhouette anywhere. F-22 Raptors. A memory rushed back. The roar of engines, the radio crackle, Ryan's voice shouting, "Titan 1, I've got your 6." Ethan blinked hard, forcing the memory away. The flight attendants moved down the aisle, smiling and serving drinks. Across from Ethan sat a young woman in a Navy uniform, Lieutenant Grace Miller. She noticed his steady, disciplined posture and the military insignia still faintly visible on his old green jacket. "Army?" she asked politely. Ethan smiled faintly. "Air Force. A long time ago." She nodded respectfully. "Once a pilot, always a pilot," she said softly. He chuckled, though the sound held no joy. "Maybe, but some pilots don't deserve the wings they wore." Grace looked puzzled but didn't press further. She could sense his pain, the kind of grief only soldiers understand. Outside, the clouds parted for a moment. And there they were again, 2 F-22 now flying closer, keeping perfect formation with the passenger jet. Murmurs spread through the cabin as people began to notice. A little boy by the window gasped, "Mom, there's a fighter jet outside." Ethan leaned forward. His heart started to pound. On the right wing, one of the jets tilted slightly. The pilot inside raised a gloved hand and saluted. Something in Ethan's chest broke. He recognized that salute, the subtle motion, the way it was held. It was the Air Force's silent sign of respect. Grace turned to him, eyes wide. "They're saluting you," she whispered. Ethan froze. "That can't be," he murmured. "No one even knows I'm here." But somehow someone did. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but curious. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you look out your right windows, you'll see we have some company. U.S. Air Force Raptors are escorting us. Please remain seated and enjoy the view." Gasps and whispers filled the cabin. Phones came out. Everyone was filming. Ethan sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on the jets. The lead pilot tilted his aircraft slightly, revealing a name stenciled just under the cockpit canopy. Blake. For a heartbeat, Ethan couldn't breathe. Ryan Blake. His best friend. Gone 3 years. But the name, it wasn't coincidence. It couldn't be. Suddenly, the radio crackled faintly in Ethan's earbuds, a signal from the cockpit crew. He'd kept his Air Force headset out of habit, just tucked in his backpack. Out of curiosity, he connected it. Static. Then a clear, familiar voice. "Titan 1, do you copy?" Ethan's throat went dry. He knew that voice, not Ryan's, but someone else from his old unit. He whispered, barely audible, "This is Titan 1. Passengers were staring now, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. Grace's hand covered her mouth. "You're Titan 1, she breathed. The voice came again, calm but filled with warmth. "Welcome home, sir. We've been waiting a long time to say that." Tears burned behind Ethan's eyes. He turned to the window, and the lead jet drew closer, almost within touching distance. The pilot, a young man, removed his oxygen mask. For a split second, Ethan saw Orion's face in that reflection. Not literally, but in spirit, in brotherhood. The pilot saluted again. Then he spoke through the radio one last time. "Your daughter Lila sent us a message, sir. She said to tell you. She's proud of her dad, the hero of Titan Squadron." Ethan's vision blurred. "How did you?" The voice cut softly. "Sir, she sent a letter to the Air Force Museum. They shared it with us." Grace wiped her own tears. Passengers around them sat in reverent silence. The moment didn't need words. It was pure, heartfelt gratitude floating between the clouds. Outside, the jets held formation for several minutes. Then, as the airliner began its descent toward Seattle, the F-22 banked away gracefully, leaving trails of white vapor like ribbons across the sky. The pilot's final words came through the headset, soft and respectful. "Welcome home, Titan 1. The sky never forgot you." Ethan sat back, eyes glistening. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. When the plane landed, passengers clapped, not for the flight, but for him. Grace leaned over and whispered, "That wasn't just a salute, Ethan. That was a thank you." He smiled faintly. "No," he said quietly. "It was forgiveness." Outside the airport, sunlight spilled over the runways. A gentle breeze swept across the tarmac. Ethan stood with his backpack slung over one shoulder, watching as a single F-22 roared overhead before vanishing into the horizon. Somewhere deep inside, he felt Emily's voice, soft, loving, and proud. "Welcome home, Titan 1. Weeks later, Ethan started his new job at the Seattle Air Tech facility. He fixed engines by day, and at night he read bedtime stories to Lila in their small apartment overlooking the harbor. Life was simple, but peaceful. Every evening, they walked together through Discovery Park, where the wind carried the scent of pine and the ocean shimmered gold at sunset. Lila loved feeding the ducks, while Ethan often gazed up at the open sky, a sky that once held his greatest fears and now carried his greatest peace. One afternoon, as they sat on a park bench, a sound echoed above, the distant roar of jet engines. Lila pointed, eyes wide. "Daddy, look!" Two F-22 streaked across the sky in perfect formation, sunlight flashing off their wings. Ethan smiled. "You think they're saying hello?" Lila grinned. "They're saying thank you, Daddy." He wrapped an arm around her, heart full. "Maybe they are, sweetheart. Maybe they are." As the jets disappeared beyond the horizon, Ethan whispered a quiet prayer for every soldier who'd ever carried their burden silently, and for every act of kindness that helped bring them home again. That day, as the sun dipped behind the Seattle skyline, a group of people at the park noticed Ethan and his daughter watching the sky. A young man approached, the same pilot who had saluted him that day. "Sir," he said respectfully, "sorry to interrupt. I'm Lieutenant Mark Jensen. I was in that escort team." Ethan rose, stunned. "You were the one." Jensen nodded, smiling. "Your daughter's letter changed a lot of hearts, sir. We just wanted to honor what you stood for." Ethan clasped his hand firmly. "No, son. You honored what we all stand for." As they spoke, a soft wind moved through the park, quiet, steady, alive. And that's how a single dad named Ethan Cole, once known as Titan 1, found his peace, not in medals or fame, but in a sky that remembered his kindness, his sacrifice, and his courage. Sometimes, the greatest acts of kindness aren't loud or grand. They're the quiet moments, a letter from a child, a salute from a stranger, or a whisper through the clouds that says, "Welcome home." Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to comment your thoughts below. We love hearing your reflections. Don't forget to like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Quest, where true stories of compassion and courage take flight every week. Thank you for watching. And remember, every act of kindness leaves a mark on the sky.